Welcome back everyone to another Weather at a Glance video. In today's forecast, we're going to be going over the next multiple day setup that is going to be occurring down in the southeastern United States and into the mid-Atlantic United States. All coming up in just a bit. All right, now on our first slide, we're taking a look at the Day 2 SPC Outlook. This is from the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center, and what we're looking at here is a slight risk issued for portions of central, northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma, as well as southwest Arkansas, Louisiana, and southwestern Mississippi. So all these areas are in a slight risk of severe weather, as you can see, for tomorrow, Monday, April 5th. And as you can see here, the main aspects with this event tomorrow are going to be damaging winds and the potential for tornadoes. A hail threat is in for tomorrow too as well. We could see hail anywhere under 2 inches per usual. So as you can see, for the marginal risk area, that's going to be the less downgraded risk. And here you can generally expect partial severe weather, but our main threat is going to be in for that yellow slight risk. But as you can see here, this includes portions of Oklahoma City for that marginal risk, and it's going to include most of Texas as well, down to Acuna, Texas, including San Antonio, Texas, Houston, Texas, and it's going to include New Orleans, Louisiana, and then into portions of Mobile, Alabama, all the way up through central Mississippi and back around the Fort Smith area and Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So as you can see here, we have a lot of cities included in this. And then when we move into our slight risk of severe weather here, the yellow slight risk, we have a very wide portion of severe weather. And this includes Abilene, Texas, Waco, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Shreveport, Louisiana, Jackson, Mississippi, and other areas into Oklahoma and Arkansas. So as you can see here, we have a lot of areas, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was upgraded to enhanced risk. So that orange enhanced risk of severe weather, we could see that tomorrow, honestly, with the type of event that we're dealing with, especially with those damaging winds that we've been seeing lately with these systems. We have a lot, and these QLC type systems are definitely bringing a lot of damaging winds with them as this moves eastwardly. All right, on our next slide, we're taking a look at that Day 3 outlook here. So we have another marginal risk and slight risk of severe weather. Now take a look at this marginal risk here. We have a wide area again of this marginal risk of severe weather. This stretches up to portions of Charlotte, North Carolina, through portions of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and all the way down into portions of the Florida Panhandle and down into northern Florida. So as you can see here, the cities included are Jacksonville, Florida, Savannah, Georgia. We have Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Montgomery, Alabama, just in that slight risk as well. And then we have Jackson, Mississippi included in this marginal risk for the second day in a row. So we have a lot of areas included in this. And then when we look for our slight risk of severe weather, we also see that we have Montgomery in there, right inside that portion of that slight risk of severe weather. And then we include just west of Savannah, Georgia. So we have a lot of areas in here as well. And what you're going to expect with this really is the tornadic aspect of this as well. We're going to be mainly focusing on damaging winds and hail. So hail again down here, less of a hail threat than down in Texas because we have a little less of cold, dry air moving into the region, but we still will have that effect where you will see some partial hail with this as well, mainly under an inch in diameter. And as you can see, the main threat with these type of storms are going to be the damaging wind aspect and also is flooding with a lot of heavy precipitation, but there will be that tornado threat as well come Tuesday. All right, on our next slide, we're taking a look at that Day 3 outlook. So this is our 15% chance of severe weather. Now, I know what you're thinking. That is a very low mathematical risk. And as you can see here, even though we have that low percent style risk, the only 2% offered on this scale are 15% and 30%, with 30% being the highest. And when we see those 30% style on this Day 4 to Day 8 outlook, that's when you have to be concerned. So any risk on the Day 4 to Day 8 outlook is definitely something you want to pay attention to. Now we have a 15% chance of severe weather, and even though that sounds a little less intimidating, you still should be weather aware with this because this is going to be including a lot of areas in this as well. I wouldn't be surprised if this was an enhanced risk as well, and really, the main threat, again, is going to be damaging winds, but here is another tornado day that you have to pay attention to. All of these severe weather events that are going to be occurring here this week are going to have the potential for tornadoes, so you need to be weather aware with these as well. We have that shear in the atmosphere from that deep trough, and really that's going to be causing a lot of shear in the atmosphere as the cold front is trying to push these storms east along the surface, and then we get that northward movement of that mid-level jet stream. So here you can see there's going to be a lot of shear in the atmosphere with these storms, and that will create the aspect of tornadoes that will create the threat, and we need to pay attention to that. All right, and the final risk we're looking at for this week thus far is the 15% outlook for the Mid-Atlantic on Wednesday. So as you can see here, this includes portions from southern Maryland all the way down through Virginia, North Carolina, all the way down to South Carolina. Carolina. So as you can see, there's a lot of areas included in this well. This is kind of a smaller risk than the other ones, but we include Virginia Beach in this and Raleigh, North Carolina. So the main threats for this day are going to be the hail factor, the damaging wind factor, and the chance for tornadoes as well. So we are going to have to pay attention to all those factors. All of these days are going to be including this, but this will be another day for tornadic activity and damaging wind activity out here in the Outer Banks region, all the way throughout the Mid-Atlantic. All right, now on our next slide, we're taking a look at that precipitation type and rate forecast model here with the GFS. And what you can see here is we're looking at a lot of precipitation within the United States at the moment. So as you can see, we have those snowy bands with this low pressure system up to the north in Minnesota, the Dakotas, and Iowa. And then as we're moving down into the southern United States, you see those storm bands that are moving through. And there's a lot of energy setting up ahead of these storm bands, which is going to give them the energy they need to form this storm activity. So we're also going to have that trough move in, and we're going to see it move in with the jet stream, and it's going to be a deep trough that's going to move into the United States, and we're going to see that shear here. So what this is going to do, we're going to have our area of upper level divergence here for the low pressure systems to kind of develop, and that's going to occur early on over the Colorado area, and then it's going to move over into Wisconsin. Now, what you can see here is this is going to be our main area of shear along this little band here, because what's going to happen is that cold front is going to want to push eastward. So when what we're talking about earlier, this cold front is going to want to push eastward, and then those winds, the mid-level winds, are going to be pushing northeastward. So that's going to create that rotation in the atmosphere. The mid-level is going to want to move northeast, while the surface is going to want to move eastwardly. So that's going to create that rotation here, and that's going to be anywhere for the following days that we see up ahead from Monday into Thursday. We're going to see this giant area here of severe weather because of the eastwardly moving storms, and that trough, how it's advancing as well to the east, and that's going to create that shear that we need, and all of these storm systems are going to be moving through that shear area, and that's going to be creating a tornadic activity type event for multiple days. So as you can see here, this is our little region that we've drawn here, and this is where you want to be paying attention the most for that tornadic activity. It is in this region. We will see a little bit of storm activity up here in the Ohio Valley as well. So up here, you could see some storm activity into the Ohio Valley, but it's going to be less of a threat as down here in the southeast. So make sure that you're paying attention anywhere within these two circles, but the main threat is going to be down here in the pink region. Now, as you can see, it's going to be a little bit colder up north. Now, we have that cold air that's going to move down from the north around that low pressure system, and that's going to be cranking around and creating that cold front that we need. And that cold front is going to be bringing cold, dry air that's going to move this system through. Now, that's going to push the more moist air through with that cold, dry air, and that's going to create the convection that we need for these storms to stay consistent. And then when we have that energy here as well, when we're talking about those high dew points and high temperatures, we're going to have a lot of energy, a lot of convective energy throughout this region that's going to be able to keep those storms stable and help support storm maintenance throughout the course of this event. All right, in our next slide, we're taking a look at our 2-meter AGL temperature with the GFS forecast model. And as you can see, we are seeing a consistent pattern throughout this week. We are going to see those colder temperatures up in the Rockies and up into the northern United States that we usually see around this time of year. That cold, dry air is going to be moving down with this system, with the cold front, and that's going to be moving that dry air that we need. So again, we're talking about that cold, dry air that's going to be coming through. And really what that's going to do is that's going to bring some colder temperatures for a lot of the southeastern United States. As you see that cold front there, we see that cold front, and then we get temperatures down into the mid 40s or so. Even into upper Alabama and upper Mississippi, we may see some temperatures in the upper 30s come around Wednesday or Thursday. So you do have to pay attention to that as well. There could be some frost advisories coming around if we get below freezing. But the main threat here is that severe weather that we're talking about. We see that large area of warm air advection coming into the United States, and it's a really giant bubble of warm air that we're going to be seeing advecting up from the Gulf of Mexico. And that's going to create that area that we need of instability. Once that cold air moves through, we're going to have this line of storms come through that is going to be able to maintain itself all the way throughout the course of this event. All right, moving into our 2-meter AGL dew point here with the GFS forecast model, this is a very important factor with your severe weather. So basically what this is showing you is how much moisture there is in the atmosphere for those storms to use. And as you can see, we get this nice plethora of moisture from that warm air advection that is going to be moving up from the Gulf of Mexico, and it even moves up into portions of the Great Lakes and up into the portions of the Northeast. So as you can see here, we have a lot of moisture here, and this is going to be able to feed these storms very well. We're going to see a lot of warm, moist air moving up from the Gulf of Mexico with that warm air advection, and then that's going to set up for the severe weather. Those storms are going to use this and utilize this. This is their food that they use. This is what gives them energy. This is what makes those storms go on. We see a lot of that very strong convection able from this humidity here. And we have a lot of moisture to take these storms on a long ride throughout the southeastern United States. With all that being said, now we're going to take a look at that surface-based CAPE. So this is a measure of the amount of energy that is able to be used in the atmosphere. This is a type of potential energy that we use to forecast how much energy can be used by these storms. So when there's a lot more energy, you're going to have the more favorable atmosphere for the storm development. Now, this is going to act as a lifting mechanism. Now, when we see that cold front move through, that is already a lifting mechanism. And then when we have this energy to come through, this convective energy, we're going to have an even secondary lifting mechanism, which is going to create an even further advancement and enhancement for these storms. So as you can see here, we have a large plethora of energy throughout the southeastern United States here, and that's what's going to be feeding this severe weather. We see these areas of even up to 3,000 joules per kilogram, and then these secondary areas over here come Tuesday that are going to be seeing up to 3,000 joules per kilogram over here, and that's a lot of energy, folks, so keep that in mind. That's a lot of energy to maintain these storms, and with that shear over here, that's going to create very high poking updrafts, and when those updrafts poke up into the atmosphere where that rotation is, those updrafts are going to begin to rotate, and that gives us our tornadic development. This rotation also helps for long-living storms because this is going to help them not rain in on their updrafts, and that is really going to keep these storms consistent, and that's what's going to keep their lifeline going. Whenever a storm cuts off its updraft, that's its lifeline, and it cuts it off, and then it's ended. But with the combination of this cold front and the rotation in these storms' updrafts, we're going to see a lot of long-lived cells come through the southeastern United States, and that's going to be even enhancing this threat that we see coming throughout this week. All right, in our next slide, we're taking a look at that 500 millibar bulk shear, and as you can see here, this is going to be showing us how much rotation there is in the atmosphere, how much shear that is going to be able to be given to these storm updrafts. Now, another key note to notice here is that we have this trough setting up, and that trough that we were talking about earlier is going to be giving that shear that we need. So, as you can see, a lot of that shear is going to be located down over the Dixie Alley and even the portions of Texas that we see for that Monday event. And then when we move into the latter part of the week, we're going to see those mid-Atlantic storms start to fire up as well, and that shear with the cold front trying to move eastward with those mid-level winds starting to push northeastward, that's going to give that shear that we need for the atmosphere, and those storms are going to utilize that, and that's what's going to be creating this tornadic potential in the mid-Atlantic. All right, and on our final slide here, we're taking a look at that Supercell Composite, and basically what this does is it's going to put all the factors that we've been talking about in today's video together to show you what is the likelihood that you will see a supercell at some point within this week. So as you can see, we have multiple different levels here. We have the lowest levels of about 1 to 4, and then we have those levels of 5 to 10, which are the moderate levels, and then we get up into the higher levels of about 10 to 20. And a lot of those 10 to 20 levels are going to be down here in the southeastern United States, in the Dixie Alley area, as well as in the Texas. And these areas you're going to want to watch out for the most tornadic development with these storms. But we also see some threats up into the Ohio Valley and mid-Atlantic as well that we were talking about. And these areas are going to have to pay attention to that as well, because you will have the threat to see tornadoes within these areas as well. Maybe not as high as a threat, but you will still have that threat, and you need to be paying attention to that. Remain weather aware to this week's, folks, because we're going to have multiple days of severe weather that you could potentially see severe weather in your location. All right, I want to thank you all so much for watching today's video. A big thanks to today's sources, Pivotal Weather, where all the forecast models seen in today's video came from, and the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center page. I would ask you consider subscribing for more U.S. forecasts free of charge, and consider following the Weather at a Glance official Facebook page for more inside information and complimentary personal forecasts when you message me on my Facebook page. Again, I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.